Giorgia. Have you been? I hope you're doing good. Well, we are back with a new show of Wings from the Word. I'm here with Antonio.
Hey, how's everybody?
And Teresa.
Hi, everyone.
She just moved here from Czech Republic, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And what you doing here in Spain?
I am here in Galicia for an internship, and I will be there for 5 months.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so today we are going to talk about Japan. It's wonderful country, island country with the 17th most numerous population in the world. In the last decades, this country, thanks to its advanced technologies and dominance as a higher education power, has become one of the most popular destinations in the world for international students who can choose among more than 700 universities. Guys, that's crazy. They have lots of university. That's why today we have here with us a special guest. He's Antonio's brother, Carlos, who spent around 9 months in Japan for his master's degree. Well, as you can imagine, Japanese culture is completely different from the European one. In fact, Carlos is going to share with us some bizarre facts about this country, like the existence of crazy festivals, for example, the Cursing Festival. I don't know if you knew about it, guys. So I think we can start.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, welcome, Carlos. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for having me here.
I think Teresa has the first question, right?
Okay, Carlos, I want to ask you, how did you end up in Japan?
Yeah, so I was studying a master's in molecular biology, and I needed to do my master thesis in a laboratory as a sort of practical work, and I had the chance to do it in a foreign country. And this laboratory specifically was looking for students in Europe because they had previous good experiences with European students working for them for a 6-month period. And I saw the email of the offer in my university account, and I decided to apply. And after a few interviews, I arranged my visa papers, which was sort of a long process, but a worth one. And then I ended up there.
Yeah, I mean, like getting a visa, I guess, like now the Europeans in all the European Union, we don't have any problems to travel. How was this process of asking for a visa in a country as Japan?
Yeah, it's not such a difficult experience in the sense that your company or the institution that is sponsoring you for a visa will take care of most of it, but it's a long process. It can take up to 4 months of paperwork. And it's true that it was the first time for me living outside Europe, and moving to another European country, it's just so easy. You just go there and mention you're there, and that's it.
Yeah, you literally just go. Take your pack everything and go.
And so that's noticeable. I'd say that applying for a visa, it's not as complicated as the procedure that comes upon arrival, which involves registering yourself as a citizen, getting a proper healthcare system, for example, making sure you are, of course, depends on the country, but in Japan, you're required to register in the public healthcare service, which is great, but of course involves several other steps. So there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, which is understandable, but then again, it's less comfortable than just moving around Europe.
Well, what was your first feeling when you got there?
I think I was quite lucky because the people from my laboratory were really supportive. They helped me. So one of the things I did was booking to pick up a SIM card at the airport. So I got my Japanese data package of internet in my phone, so I could use Google Maps to go from the airport to the laboratory, which navigating the Tokyo train system, it's quite difficult without the internet in your phone, especially when you're new. And then I was really well guided by the people there, and my co-workers helped me a lot. So I think I was really lucky. Still, it's a great experience because everything is new. So things that you give as obvious here are quite surprising, are quite exciting, even if it's just, oh, look at the color of that bus or something like that.
Of course.
Yeah, I was thinking like the most simple things as going to the supermarket or getting your haircut. It must be like a struggle with all the linguistic difference.
Yes, indeed. It's, if you go to a supermarket, if you had that experience in a country where you don't dominate the language, it's easy, it's doable. You don't really have to interact with the employees in the supermarket, but still, if anything goes wrong,
Yes,
it's
exactly.
already a big issue. So you can survive, but it's not optimal. And I had that before in other countries, but I think in Japan was one step further, like the arriving the first day and I'm like, what am I gonna buy? Like, what are these vegetables? I've never seen these vegetables before in my life.
Yeah, like buying fish that may kill you, the fugu.
Oh, fugu, yeah. Yeah, fugu is not that common in supermarkets because I think it would be kind of irresponsible. But also I think it's not as bad as The Simpsons or Western culture put it. I think,
yeah, of course,
as long as you remove one specific part, you're good to go. But then again, I'm not really sure about this, so don't trust me.
Yeah, don't trust him, please.
So you can say that Japanese people are welcoming, or do you think they have some kind of stereotypes about Europeans? How do they accept foreigners there?
Well, both are true. They are really welcoming, but they also have a lot of stereotypes. A thing about Japan is that there's very little immigration, and it has been like that since forever. Like, it's the historical trend of the country, even though it's opening more right now. So they're not used to foreigners, and also the Japanese have a culture it's a very respectful culture, it's a very polite culture, and we are not that good at that. I mean, we are good for European standards, but not for Japanese standards, in the sense of how we should be silent in the train, for example. So especially with tourists, it's hard because, of course, if you live there for a long time, you just adapt to it because you're not going to be hated by the locals for months. But if you are, especially with tourists, Japanese people get this expression, they don't put enough effort to adapt and contribute to the rules of society, which is true, to be honest. But then again, they will never say that to you because they're that polite, so they will just judge you silently, sort of.
Yeah, I like read somewhere that Japanese people always laugh at your jokes. Like, if you or even if you make really bad jokes, they will laugh. So it's my country. I can move there and feel proud of my jokes. So is it true? Like, are they so kind? So they always smile. I have these stereotypes in my mind that they always smile. They're always, really friendly people. But maybe, as you said, it's not that true.
It is true. It's just the problem that you cannot really ever know if they're meaning it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know I'm generalizing a lot, and the Japanese people I met are incredibly amazing. But if you have a society that values this politeness and this being friendly all the time, it's good, it's nice, it's very loving, but you're never going to know if they're really being polite because they mean it or just because that's the social tradition.
Yes, I mean, I guess it's a bit weird for us. Maybe we are more spontaneous and they are more, trying to be always polite. But, I also wanted to ask you, what are the things that are considered rude in Japan? Like, what you should avoid doing in Japan? Because I read something about blowing your nose in public.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So blowing your nose in public, it's really rude. And what you should do if you have a running nose is just sniff it up. So in Europe, it would be the opposite. I'd say sniffing. Like that would be quite rude in Europe, and it's what you should politely do in Japan, either that or just go privately to a silent place and then blow your nose. But then again, not in front of people. Same happens with blowing your noodles, for example, which is a thing that we don't do in, like, not blowing, slurping.
Slurping,
your
yes.
noodles.
Oh my God, that's disgusting.
That's quite common, especially like I was in Japan in last year, so crowds were not common, as they are not ever in today's world. But if you go to a crowded-ish restaurant, you would have this bottom noise. If you go to a ramen restaurant,
oh my God.
It annoys me. I could never.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe it's me, but it's really okay. You kind of get used to it. But in the beginning, it may be kind of shocking.
There's also in Japan this issue with the tattoos that are like associated with the mafia.
That is basically correct.
So with us, with Italians, you mean?
With the Yakuza. So that's a thing, and the issue is it's not a problem for you if you're a Western person and you have a tattoo. You won't really be judged, or it's not a problem in everyday society, but it is a problem if you go to an onsen. Onseners are basically these hot water places for bathing in public. If you have seen any anime or any Japanese movies, you probably watch very commonly men going to one place, women going to another place, all naked for the common baths. And many onsen, if they're traditional enough, they will not allow you inside with a tattoo, or at least will make you cover it somehow.
That's crazy because Japan is technologically super developed. You can see high technology, but at the same time, it's a bit of a paradox because at the same time, we can say always, according to what I've read in the internet, it's quite an oppressive society. There is high rate of suicides in Japan and Korea as well.
Also death penalty.
It is
death penalty.
Yeah. It's true, and they are aware of that. It's, if you go around Tokyo, they will tell you it's a place where modernity and tradition are combined. And this is good, but this is also bad.
Yes.
So it's a very traditional is like a nice word to put it. You could also say conservative.
Yeah, conservative.
And change is difficult to be addressed because if you have such collective society, everybody tends to follow the rules. Everybody tries to go with the flow, go with the group, which is great for many things, but also makes it difficult for somebody to stand out and start embracing change. So many of the societal roles that have been changing in the last decades in the West, for example, they are also changing there, but much more slower.
So can we say that, for example, in Japan, there are problems such as racism, or are they against homosexuality and stuff like this?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's huge problem. I'd say there is definitely more problems than in the West. So racism, it's not a big issue in the sense of that there's barely no non-Asian people in Japan, as opposed to Europe, for example, where there's a lot of non-white people. But there's definitely a problem about that, although I wouldn't be able to tell you how deep it is.
Yeah, I mean, you have never experienced racism there, like they are not racist to you.
No, I think I don't know how to say it without sounding bad, but I think whites are pretty much okay. Yeah, especially because it's associated with people that will probably come in with more money.
But unfortunately that happens in almost everywhere in the world, even in I don't know,
that's
Russia.
The big majority of immigrants in Japan are Chinese and Korean, and there's a lot of conflict there too. Also, there's mostly historical reasons for this: the Second World War, the past colonization of Korea, many of the Koreans that arrived in Japan didn't come voluntarily to Japan. They came after the colonization.
There is
of
also
Korea.
the comfort women theme.
Yes.
So Korea still has some issues with Japan because of comfort women. Japanese soldiers, as far as I know, they forced these really young ladies to move to Japan, and they were telling them that they were going there to find a better life, maybe a job, but instead they were prostitutes. But Japan isn't admitting this. Even nowadays, they're denying what happened. So there is, and when you tell me that there are immigrants, Korean immigrants in Japan, it surprises me a lot because I know there are these conflicts.
Yeah, I mean, it's thankfully different right now, but it's still it's an issue to be addressed, of course, and there are these problems, and there's many Koreans that are going to have their own issues in that sense of discriminations and such. And Koreans, I'd say, probably are not really happy about Japanese, and I don't really blame them.
Yeah.
I also heard that the Japanese are like quite. They have quite a pride in their hygiene. We can say hygiene.
Oh yes,
and they think like the other Asians and maybe even other countries in the world are like more dirty than them.
The thing is that that's true. So the Japanese are cleaner than the rest of the world, I'd say. And when the pandemic started, you would have data of countries who wash their hands more, and Japan was the first, like without a doubt. And it's like a whole thing of having everything really clean and washing your hands constantly and showering and taking your shoes off at the end, entering your house, of course.
And is it true that they have a pair of slippers that they use only in the bathroom? Like they put slippers when they are at home, but in Europe, some countries do it, like Italy, for example, which is normal for me, but they have specific slippers they use only in the bathroom, which is, if you think about it, it makes sense. It can make sense. Like, the bathroom is dirty. You do your own stuff there. So, but it's crazy for me that they have, their own slippers just for the bathroom.
Yeah. So basically, if you get invited to the house of someone, they will have slippers for you. So like guest slippers, so you take off your shoes and get on your slippers. And then if you enter the toilet, not in every house, but in some of them, you would have to remove your guest slippers and get into the communal bathroom slippers.
So they're for
everyone. So when you enter the toilet, you put those on, you do your thing, you take them off, and you leave. So those slippers never leave the toilet. So they are sort of the toilet slippers. And the thing is that I cannot tell you how many things I left the toilet with the toilet slippers on, because I cannot think about taking my shoes off after using the toilet. Like, that's not ingrained inside my head. So when I enter the bathroom, I'd see the slippers, I'm like, oh, okay, I have to change. But then at the exit, I completely forget, and I leave my slippers in the entrance of the toilet, and I go back. And this happens in bars too, not only in bars would also have like toilet slippers.
Wow.
Oh man.
This is is crazy. I love this country.
Consider not every bar, not the typical nightlife pub in Tokyo. It would be not so different to a European one, and you just go inside with your shoes and whatever. But there are some places, especially restaurants, where you also take your shoes out at the entrance of the restaurant, and then you put your slippers, and then the toilet would also have.
I think that's typical of Asia in general.
I think people might be curious too about the nightlife in Japan.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us about. I guess there are some more like Western-like places, and maybe some more traditional places. How's that nightlife that you can see in Japan?
Yeah. I should point out firstly that most of my experience in Japan was in Tokyo, so it's probably the most Western you can go within Japan. It's the most international part, etc. Then, so the traditional Japanese bar, it's called izakaya, and it's drinks and it's food too. So you could order small dishes with like some chicken wings or some edamame or some tofu, and then drinks. And they're usually quite cheap. Especially you can find a lot of this chain izakaya that it's like the McDonald's of nightlife in Japan, and they're really cheap, and you can find one in every corner of the same brand.
And is it alcohol cheap too, or?
Yeah, depends on where you go, but yes, if you go to one of these chains, you could have a beer like a jar of beer for €150 maybe.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So that's quite cheap.
Oh my
There's
God.
also whiskey is very popular in Japan, and so is gin. And there's also a bunch of other Japanese liquors that.
What about
worth
Jägermeister?
trying.
I would love to see Japanese
Oh.
raise so high in Jägermeister.
I cannot recall having seen Jägermeister in Japan, but it probably is there. I just probably
I
never
guess so,
noticed it because I don't order it normally. But yeah, so you have the izakaya, then you have the more Western bars. There's a lot of English or Irish themed bars, which
Really?
are no doubt, like and they're super popular amongst foreigners too. They will play football, which in Japan is soccer, and rugby, etc. And you could get like beer in pints and cider, and sometimes the owner is British too.
Oh.
So that's quite a popular thing. And then the nightlife, of course, when the izakaya closes, it's mostly the karaoke.
Yes.
Mhm.
They love karaoke.
Which
Yeah, one of the
is
most stereotypical things about Japan.
yeah.
Japanese drinking sake and after singing in karaoke after 18 hours of working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In Korea
indeed.
too.
Sleeping in the booth if necessary.
Have you ever been to a karaoke?
Yeah, tons of times, of course. So it's a one room per group, of course, not like the karaoke we're used to in Europe or in Spain at least. So you could have like 5-6 people inside one room with your own machine, and then you just get the drinks coming, and you pay by the hour, and that's pretty much it. And there's a wide range of international songs so it's a bit for everyone. A lot of English songs, some Spanish songs, some
Nice.
Chinese, Vietnamese songs, depending
super
on.
international.
Yeah, depends on the place you go, of course. But also one really interesting thing is that they have English songs with the words also phonetically written in Japanese. So you can sing them even if you don't understand English or the Latin alphabet at all.
That's smart.
Yeah, you can do the same, of course, the other way around. Like
Of
if you want to
course.
sing a
Yeah.
Japanese song and you don't
Yeah,
speak
yeah.
Japanese,
I mean, yeah.
they will have the Latin alphabet on top of the actual lyrics, but they also do it the other way around.
So you were like so hyped singing the Naruto song.
I did once with the Evangelion opening song, but in my defense, there were more Japanese people with me, so they did most of the singing.
Okay. I think the question is mandatory. You spend the hardest months of the coronavirus pandemic in Japan, so you skipped the classic European lockdowns. So how was that? I mean, you were so lucky.
Indeed. It was a common theme of conversation amongst the people working in our campus, especially the Europeans and Americans, that we were obviously missing the whole impact of the coronavirus pandemic. And of course, life was affected, of course. Zoom as work meetings became popular as in any other countries. And bars were sort of recommended to close early, but not made to do so. So, and of course, the nightlife was more empty, and big festivals and big crowds were stopped. So March, which was the beginning of the pandemic, more or less for Europe, and so for everywhere outside China, was the period of the flowering of the sakura, the flowering of the cherry trees, which is the main event in the year in Japan, I'd say. And they have these parties called hanami, which means watching flowers. And they're basically about drinking. And if you ask a Japanese person about the cultural heritage or hanami, they will say, like, no, shut up. This is about watching flowers and drinking, which is great. It's pretty cool. And there was like a big discussion in that time of whether allowing hanami to happen or not. And it was incredibly discouraged. But of course, many people still did.
Okay.
So I guess the face mask was mandatory, but apart from that, you could make a normal life.
Well, it wasn't mandatory. That's kind of the thing.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't, and it's not now. I mean, but that's kind of what I was telling you about Japanese society before. It's not mandatory; just everyone does it because there's like this social pressure, which is understandable. Well, you would have it here now, right? Like, if it wasn't mandatory now and somebody outside was not wearing a mask, you would get like looks and judging and which is understandable, of course. So that happens in Japan a lot. Like, you have to follow social rules and have this collectivism in society. So it's never mandatory, just people do it.
Yeah, I think there is more common sense in Japan. Also, this question of face masks, for example. I know that they wear face masks. I mean, they've been wearing them since forever. Like, if they have a flu, for example, they wear it. So I guess they have more common sense than us.
This way of behavioring has good things and bad things. It's not many things are really good, but some things are not so good. As we were talking before, it doesn't really promote social change and such. But it is definitely good in a pandemic. It's
of course.
You contribute to others. You are aware of the needs of others, and that makes you act more responsibly.
So guys, we're running out of time, and do you have any final message about, like, would you recommend to spend some time in Japan or not?
Because I want to go.
I would definitely recommend to spend some time in Japan. Japan is great. I think I really love Japan, but also I know some people tend to idealize Japan and think it's a great place where everything is perfect. And it's also not that way. It has good things and it has bad things as any other place in the world, but I strongly recommend it.
Okay, Carla, so thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was all for today, and see you in the next episode.
And follow us on social media, One Radio Erasmus account on Instagram.
That's right. Bye.